Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, the books were opened.
I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory, and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Psalm 110. The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou at my right hand, until I make thine enemies thy footstool. The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies. Thy people shall be willing in the day of thy power. In the beauties of holiness from the womb of the morning, thou hast the dew of thy youth. The Lord hath sworn, and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the places with the dead bodies. He shall wound the heads over many countries. He shall drink of the brook in the way. Therefore shall he lift up the head.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessing, salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners, whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today, go into some history. All right, because as we know, of course, when we speak about, the enemies of Israel, okay, of course, Umaro Uno, all right, number one, all right, is Esau Edom, okay, which, it was prophesied, all right, that we will pretty much be, arch rivals, okay, in the planet Earth, struggling in the womb together, a war, all right, between Jacob and Esau, which began in the womb, okay. But I want to put emphasis with this lesson and going into the history of the Saharan slave trade, okay, in which you have these, what they call Arabic, was mostly, Ishmaelites, some Midianites, okay, and they, all right, did Jake bad, man. They did us bad, man, because all these nations are our enemies. Esau, of course, is always going to get, the most spotlight, because he is the wicked, and he's in charge of the earth, okay? And he hates us more than any of these heathens, okay? But there's a hatred amongst these heathens, all right, for the chosen people, okay? And this was all part, of our punishment for our disobedience, okay? In which we're going to go into these things. Even Yahweh Shai, he spoke on these things, okay? So this is Luke 21:24. It says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, okay? So we fell by the sword, 70 AD, okay? You had those Flavian dynasty emperors, okay, Vespasian, beginning with Vespasian and Titus, okay, that destroy the temple, sack the temple, okay, terrorize Jake, and a lot of us fled. You know, a lot of our people fled from Jerusalem and ended up into the interiors of Africa, mainly north and west coast of Africa, man. All right, which the west coast of Africa would later be known as what? The slave coast. Okay? And it says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles, the actual heathens, which you have with Esau, okay, and them Arabs in our land now, and Palestinians, you know, most of them are Ishmaelites, okay. And it says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, and we're in that time where it's going to be fulfilled. So Yahweh Shai, he covered a lot of history, okay, in this one, you know, precept. And what we're going to emphasize on is all shall be led away captive into all nations, man, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Okay, I got a video. I want to go into a documentary, and very informative. You know, he's going to go in, you know, on what was done to us. Okay, just to show that, hey, we have, you know, enemies amongst all these nations, man. You know, and that's why Yahweh Shai coming back to get busy with all of them, man. Okay, so let's go here. You know, because this was part of the curse as well. Deuteronomy 28, all right, and 64. All right, in Deuteronomy 28, 64 says, and the Lord, Yahweh B'Shem Al Shai, shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Okay? So these things are all throughout the scriptures, what will happen to us. Okay? For disobedience. All right? And one of the main punishment is us being scattered amongst all people. And the main thing that scattered us, okay, were these slave trades, man. Okay? Which you have the transatlantic slave trade. When you go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68, which we go into that often, you know. But like I said, we're going to go into the sub-Saharan because we was promised to be spread amongst all people in the earth. Okay? And these gods, all right, that our people, because you go into the transatlantic slave trade, most of our people was converted into what? Christianity. All right, the sub-Saharan slave trade, most of our people was converted into Islam, man. All right, but any religion outside, any belief system outside of the truth, outside of Yahweh B'Shem Al Shai, is a belief that our fathers didn't know. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they didn't know anything outside of the one power, Yahweh. Okay, so anything that we served out of there is a belief our forefathers, all right, never knew. Okay, so let's go here to the documentary, and I'm gonna let it play. You know, and brother, this guy, he's getting down. You know, so I'm gonna let him play. Lord will, I can post this whole little documentary to the GMS Historical Breakdowns channel. All right, let's let this play.
People enslaved by Muslims has been a hotly debated topic. Expansion of the import of black Africans across the Sahara from around AD 1000. The number of people enslaved by Muslims has been a hotly debated topic, especially when the millions of Africans forced from their homelands are considered. With full control of a great part of Africa, the Arabs began to capture young boys and girls and took them to Egypt, where they were sold into slavery within Africa, or taken across the Indian Ocean to Indonesia, China, Southwest Asia, and India. By the 10th century, the demand for slaves from Africa to work as plantation hands, sex slaves, domestic maids, and slave warriors had increased greatly, so much so that an estimated number of 5,000 slaves were shipped out of Africa a year. The historian Paul Lovejoy estimates that some 9.85 million Africans were shipped out as slaves to Arabia, and in small numbers to the Indian subcontinent. Lovejoy breaks his figures down as follows. Between AD 650 and 1600, an average of 5,000 Africans were shipped out per annum by the Arabs. This makes a rough...
And that's almost 1,000 years. So Ishmael was heavy into the slave trade even before, Esau started. All right, in the the late 1400s, early 1500s, when the Portuguese, all right, jumped off, the slave trade, okay, with a good ship, Jesus, man. Okay, and this is nothing new. Matter of fact, let's get this history real quick. Get familiar with those people, in their region. So Abraham had sons with Keturah. All right, so this is on Genesis 25:1. It says Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. She gave birth to Zimran, Joshkan, Median, Ishbak, and Shaul. Now, when you go into Median, all right, which they come up often, there was a rival. You go into the book of Numbers. Okay, we had a run in with the Midianites. All right, but just get familiar with their territory. What you go into the Hebrew, all right. What you got? Midian, all right, Midian, all right, in the Hebrew, and it goes into strife. Ironic, okay. But it says to go into the land so you can be familiar with their geography. The territory of the tribe descended from Midian, located principally in the desert north of the Arabian Peninsula, which is modern-day Saudi Arabia, North Saudi Arabia, land to which Moses went when he fled from Pharaoh. Okay, so you have those Midianites. Now you go here to this account when Joseph, was taken by his brothers. I started 18, read the whole count. All right, once eventually, Joseph brothers, were they were jealous. Joseph was the favorite. Jacob, he had a coat of many colors, and then he had a dream, that his brethren and his mother and father would bow down to him, and that was the last straw. So they conspired against Joseph. Okay, the other patriarchs. So let's read here in verse 18. It says, when Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance, and as he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard of this scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into an empty cistern here in the wilderness. Then he'll die without our laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. Then they grabbed him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Then, just as they were sitting to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming towards them. It was a group, It was a group of Ishmaelite traders, So Ishmael has been into the slave trade, The merchant men of their region, all right? So these are Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum and balm and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. And when they started this sub-Saharan slave trade, they was taking Jake and bringing them where? Into Egypt. So this is nothing new. That trade relation between the Ishmael and the Egyptians, has been long going. All right. It said Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain by killing our brother? We have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." And his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brother pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver, and the traders took him to Egypt. So what we're listening to is nothing new. All right, Ishmael ain't new to this. They truly
Africans were vehemently shipped out per annum. The total figure for the 19th century alone was 1.2 million slaves to Arabia. Some other historians estimate altogether that between AD 650 and 1900, 10 million to 20 million people were enslaved by Arab slave traders. Others believe that over 20 million enslaved Africans alone had been delivered through the trans-Saharan route alone.
So you just see their route, and this is the fulfillment of us being scattered amongst all people. Okay? And this was the anger of the Lord, just sending Jake everywhere. You see? Just sending Jake everywhere, man. All right?
To the Islamic world. Dr. John Alambella Azuma estimates in his 2001 book, The Legacy of Arab Islam in Africa, that over 80 million...
Replace social media with these book summaries.
And here's the thing. It's so easy to get... Hi.
More black people died over that route. The Arab slave trade was so intense, bloody, merciless to say the least. The cruelty on African captives by the Arabs was beyond telling. Similar to the transatlantic slave trade, captured slaves were beaten to be weakened and chained together. However, captured victims in the sub-Saharan slave trade had to endure several weeks of walking through the desert, carrying loads for their new masters from West or East Africa, to where they were eventually sold in the slave markets. Cairo, Baghdad, Istanbul, Mecca, and other centers. These slaves played various roles in the economy of the Muslim world. They were used as servants, harem keepers, laborers in fields, mines, and hydraulic yards, and as cannon fodder in armies. In several of his detailed books about the slave trade, British explorer Henry Hamilton Johnston explains how several slaves died in the desert, while others who fell sick or were badly bruised and could not make it were brutally killed by their masters. David Livingstone, the British missionary, traveler, and explorer, was so upset by the way the Arabs treated their African slaves that he wrote back home in the year 1870. These were his words. In less than I take to talk about it, these unfortunate creatures, 84 of them, wended their way into the village where we were. Some of them, the eldest, were women from 20 to 22 years of age, and there were youths from 18 to 19 years. But the large majority was made up of boys and girls from 7 years to 14 or 15 years of age. A more terrible scene than these men, women, and children I do not think I ever came across. To say that they were emaciated would not give you an idea of what human beings can undergo under certain circumstances. Each of them had his neck in a large forked stick weighing from 30 to 40 pounds and 5 or 6 feet long, cut with a fork at the end of it where the branches of a tree spread out. The women were tethered with bark thongs, which are of all things the most cruel to be tied with. Of course, the bark thongs are soft and supple when first stripped off the trees, but a few hours in the sun would make them about as hard as the iron round packing cases. The little children were fastened by thongs to their mothers. As we passed along the path through which these slaves had traveled, I was shown a spot in the bushes where a poor woman the day before, unable to keep up with the march and most likely to hinder it, was cut down by the axe of one of these slave drivers. We went on further and were shown a place where a child lay. It had been recently born and its mother was unable to carry it from debility and exhaustion. So the slave trader had taken this little infant by its feet and dashed its brains out against one of the trees and thrown it in there. Such was the brutality meted out to the Africans by the Arabs. Looking at all this in a very factly honest manner, the totality of the unthinkable, horrid practices besetted upon a certain group of people. Historians agree that it is a mistake to equate the bare survival of Africa with cultural or social or economic stagnation, for the slave trade visited such panoply of tragically interconnected disasters into the lives of every African for centuries, so that they have worked their way into the very racial memory of the continent and its people, particularly females, that only with time and kindness can it be expunged from the psyche of Africa. The Arabs' treatment of black Africans can aptly be termed an African genocide. Arabs killed more Africans in transit, especially when crossing the Sahara Desert, than Europeans and Americans combined, and over more centuries, both before and after the years of the Atlantic slave trade. Arab Muslims began extracting millions of black African slaves centuries before Christian nations did. Arab slave traders removed slaves from Africa for about 13 centuries, compared to the 3 centuries of the Atlantic slave trade. African slaves transported by Arabs across the Sahara Desert died more often than slaves making the Middle Passage to the New World by ship. Slaves invariably died within 5 years if they worked in the Ottoman Empire's Sahara salt mines. Black Africans did not enjoy immunity to many of the diseases found in the Arab world, which also resulted in high death rates. In West Africa, the Arab slave trade encompassed a vast region from the Niger Valley to the Gulf of Guinea. This traffic followed the trans-Saharan roads. The crossing could last up to 3 months with a high mortality rate due to the
And West, Africa, as we spoke of earlier, was what known as the slave coast, man. Mostly Jake. Hey, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna let it play. Then we get some precepts. Cause you're gonna keep going in,
conditions of the trip. Here is the testimony of the German explorer Gustav Nachtigall. The poor children of the black countries seemed to meet death here, at the last stage of a long, hopeless, and painful journey. The long journey accomplished with insufficient food and scarce water, the contrast between the rich natural resources and the humid atmosphere of their homeland, and the dry and anemic air of the desert, the fatigue and the privations imposed by their masters and by the circumstances in which they find themselves, all this has gradually ruined their young strengths. The memory of their homeland that has disappeared along the way, their fear of an unknown future, the endless journey under the blows, hunger, thirst, and deadly exhaustion have paralyzed their last faculties of resistance. If the poor creatures lack strength to get up and walk again, they are simply abandoned, and their minds slowly fade under the destructive effect of the rays of the sun, hunger, and thirst. According to the work of some historians, the Arab slave trade has affected more than 17 million people. In the Saharan region alone, more than 9 million African captives were deported and 2 million died on the roads. This despicable phenomenon was legitimized by Islam, as Christianity would later condone the transatlantic slave trade. For example, the Tunisian Arab historian Ibn Khaldun, from 1332 to 1406, wrote that the only peoples to accept slavery are the Negroes because of their lower degree of humanity, their place being closer to the animal stage. Another one, the Algerian Arab theologian Ahmed al-Wanchi.
So you see what all these nations think of Jake, man. All right, Esau, he had that theory of evolution. We come from monkeys. Okay, the Ishmaelites, they thought the same way. Okay, Jake being, just another animal, okay, on the planet. Didn't even look at Jake as human, man. Okay, Israel has many enemies, man.
Arisi, from 1430/1431 to 1508, offered legal and religious recommendations. This, he said, I have been asked about slaves from the land of Abyssinia who profess monotheism and accept the rules of the holy law. Is it legal or not to buy and sell them? If their conversion to Islam comes after the establishment of a property right on these slaves, then Islam does not demand liberation because slavery was caused by unbelief. The state of servitude persists after the disappearance of unbelief because of its existence in the past. The Arab slave trade was characterized by appalling violence, rape, and worst of all,
So you niggas that are Islam, think you're doing something deep, all right? You have no idea, okay, of the history, the terror that Islam has did to Jake. Okay, you niggas want to be Moors. The Moors, okay, were pretty much mercenaries for what you call the Umayyad Caliphate, okay, which was Ishmaelites that took over, Iberian Peninsula, which is Portugal and Spain, and they left those Jakes, those Moors. They was called Berbers, okay, pretty much Jake mercenaries in North Africa, and they left them in that peninsula for a garrison because the Umayyad Caliphate had, other lands, okay, that they was in control of. All right, so they left Jake over there in, the Iberian Peninsula, and what did Jake do? He turned it to an empire. It's Jake, okay. But the reason that they're Islamic is because, they were servants under that caliphate, those Ishmaelites, all right? The Islamic caliphate, man. So you jakes that think that you are more and you deep and you Islam, so you own to something. No, man. Okay, you're just serving another religion of a nation that oppress you, man. No different than the northern tribes that's into Roman Catholicism, man. Okay, you're just worshiping a religion, which is pretty much the mind control of your oppressor, man. Okay, and that's why when Malcolm X went over there, he had to wake up, and he seen how Ishmael went dealing with Jake like that. Here it is, Islam is supposed to be this religion of peace, okay? But them Ishmaelites, all right, them Sunnis and them Shiites over there in Saudi Arabia and Syria, okay, Qatar, all right, the Midianites, they don't fool with Jake, man. They don't recognize them niggas, man. Okay, so them niggas in Philly, I think most of them niggas in Philly be on their Islamic. They don't have no clue. All right, so let's play some more.
Castration of black male slaves. While African women and girls were targeted, captured, and deported by Arab slavers for use as sex slaves, the male captives were, on the other hand, pitilessly castrated to prevent them from reproducing and becoming a stock. Castration of male slaves became a habit among slave traders due to the fact that they were in higher demand, stronger, noted to work faster and more efficiently, and were not a threat to slave masters and owners who feared that their wives, concubines, and female slaves would have affairs with them. The suffering inflicted on the victims of castration was profound, encompassing physical and psychological trauma. Castration was done to boys between the ages of 9 and 12, as it was.
Castration was done to young Jake between the ages of 9 and 12, man. Okay, Ishmael was big on castrating Jake. They specialize in having Jake eunuchs. Okay, which they would sell off. A eunuch was very valuable, because they would be men, locked into their task. They didn't have to worry about Jake popping their women. You see. And they can entrust, more to a eunuch, okay, than with regular slaves. So a eunuch, was a value thing, which he's going to go into it, okay. But they terrorized, the Israelite man, okay, and it's going to go to the horrors of the castration.
Believe that they survived the process more than an adult or adolescent. Although very many did not survive the process, as they often died during or after the harrowing operation. Whites died more, so slavers concentrated more on blacks. This was the darkest chapter in history that highlights the extent to which humans were dehumanized and exploited for gain. Here's a more detailed insight into this practice. 1. Economic factors. One of the primary reasons for castrating male captives was economic. The exporting countries had good economic incentives to castrate male slaves before they were shipped off. In the medieval slaving industry that was designed for exporting Slavic prisoners of war to the Arab world.
All these deals are so good, you won't believe the prices.
This has to be a joke.
It's no joke.
Castrating the slaves was an integral part of the process. Castration was then performed in the famous castration houses in Venice. Eunuchs, or castrated male slaves, were highly sought after due to their perceived trustworthiness and reliability. Eunuchs were considered valuable commodities in Arab societies, thus fetching much higher prices in slave markets compared to non-castrated slaves. Their lack of reproductive capability meant that they could serve in positions of trust and authority without posing a threat to the owner's hereditary wealth and power. Eunuchs were often employed in sensitive positions such as harem guards, administrative posts, and as servants in elite households. They served in influential positions in the Abbasid Caliphate's administration, with some even rising to the rank of vizier.
And the vizier, all right, will be like you pretty much be a part of the king's council, or if if you was a eunuch, in a household of you know, a noble man, a house of nobility, and you will be considered a vizier. Okay, you'll pretty much be within the council, okay, of your master, or your lord, or your king, or whatever, you know, the master's rank was of the house. Okay, so as eunuchs, you know, they could be trusted to be, you know, on these top councils and in these top positions and in these sensitive positions that they wouldn't trust other men. And that's what made them so valuable. And that's why, you know, Ishmael specialized in, you know, the eunuchs, you know, making Jake a eunuch, man.
Incentives gained by slave traders from exporting black eunuchs to the Arab nations encouraged the practice of castration. In some cases, such as the Zanj rebellion in the 9th century Iraq, castrated slaves were sought after to work in dangerous and demanding environments like salt mines. This practice had persisted for centuries in the Arab slave trade. As late as 1903, there were still 194 African eunuchs in service to the Ottoman ruling family. 2. Control and domination. Castration was employed by Arab slavers as a means of exerting control and dominance over their male captives. By removing their ability to procreate, the slavers aimed to eliminate any potential threats of rebellion or the establishment of rival lineages. Additionally, castration was intended to ensure that these slaves would remain solely devoted to their master's demands without the family or personal attachments. 3. Social dislocation. Castrated were forcibly removed. It was photographed in 1896. This large boys may have been destined for castration to serve as eunuchs. The slaves in the photograph were headed to a Muslim country well after the American Civil War. In fact, slavery in the United States was a good bit more humane than slavery in the Arab world. It was bloody for Africans, bloody beyond words. In some cases, Africans engage in castration trauma associated with this practice. 4. Psychological and physical
Separate, you know, to perform this surgery. Okay, but those 4 that would survive were so profitable that it made up for those 6 deaths. Okay.
This is a prime reason why there are not many communities of blacks living in the non-African Muslim, affecting the physical development and health of victims. Without testosterone, eunuchs often suffered from various health issues such as decreased muscle mass, fatigue, obesity, osteoporosis, and a lack of secondary sexual characteristics. 5. Cultural and religious beliefs. Some societies believed that castrated individuals were spiritually purer and more suitable for certain religious duties. For instance, in some Islamic societies, eunuchs were considered more appropriate for guarding holy sites. The guardianship of the Holy Kaaba in Mecca included the use of African eunuchs. Some men were castrated to be eunuchs in domestic service, and the practice of neutering male slaves was not limited to only black males. The Khalifa in Baghdad at the beginning of the 10th century had 7,000 black eunuchs and 4,000 white eunuchs in his palace, writes author Ronald Siegel in his 2002 book Islam's Black Slaves, The Other Black Diaspora. In the Arab world, demand for castrated slaves was so high that even with the appalling death rate from the procedure, it was still profitable, which explains why there is no large African diaspora community in Arab countries. Castrated men don't father children. The Arab slave trade had a tragic impact on the evolution of African societies. Some areas were completely devastated and depopulated. Welsh explorer Henry Morton Stanley, from 1841 to 1904, was a horrified witness of this traffic. He wrote that after the depredations of the Arab traffickers, the black blood flows toward the north, the equator smells corpses. As one commentator puts it, could it be true that the corrosive effects of 4 centuries of commerce in humans, with its temptation, its inbuilt opportunism, its reduction of humans to a cash value, its cycles of revenge, and its inevitable physical brutality, have built lasting flaws into the African pattern of thought and action? The United Nations has made March 23 the International Day of...
So, as you can see, real bad. Finish us, man. Okay, but what happened in Jerusalem? Okay, so what happened to us as a people hasn't been done on the earth to other people as it been done to us, man. Okay, and the Lord is pissed at the level these nations have taken it to. Okay, and that's why. Okay, and that's why you get here. I think it's Zechariah 1. and 15. All right, I started at 14. It says Zechariah 1 and 14, it says, So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with great jealousy, and I am very sore displeased with the heathen, all you heathens, that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they help for the affliction. And you read this in NLT. But I am very angry with the other nations that are now enjoying peace and security. I was only a little angry with my people, but the nations inflicted harm on them far beyond my intentions. Okay? So he just done too much, man. All right? And as you can see, these Edomites, of course, they're the front runner, and then Ishmael's right there with them. And that's why even when you go to the book of Psalms, all right, 83, okay, and the scriptures got all the receipts. Okay, this is Psalms 83, and I started 1. It says, Keep not thy silence, O power, hold not thy peace, be the tale. Okay, keeps Jake as the most oppressed people in the earth, man. All right, but now, man, Yahweh Shah finna overturn all this, man. Okay, he said, They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, okay, of Moab and the Hagarians, okay, the Gibeonites, the Ammonites, the Amalekites, all right, which is the chief tribe of Esau, and the people of Philistia and Tyre. Assyria has joined them too, and is allied with the descendants of Lot. It said, Do to them as you did to the Midianites. Okay, so this is asking for what, man? A punishment on these heathens, man. Do to them as you did to the Midianites, and as you did to Sisera and Jabin at the Kishon River. You know, which you had that and put that javelin, okay, through the head of Sisera. Okay, revenge. Okay, so through Yahweh Shai, we're gonna get revenge on all these heathens, man. Okay, and our forefathers have always cried out against all these nations, man. Even when you go to First Maccabees 2, and then we'll get the revenge on all of them, man. First Maccabees 2, and this is Mattathias, you know, the father of Judas Maccabees, okay, and the rest of the, you know, the Maccabean family, all right, that would revolt, all right, and this started that Maccabean revolt, okay, in First Maccabees 2. And it says, And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Judah and Jerusalem, he said, Woe is me, wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the holy city, to dwell there, when it was delivered into as a nation, have not had a part in her kingdom, and gotten of her spoils. Okay, so all these nations, in one point, and all these nations benefit on our captivity. This current beast system, this beast system economy, okay, thrives off what, man? The spoils of Jake, man. Okay, Jake being the hand and feet, the battery pack of this society, you know, has built this global economy up, man. Okay, and you can go more into that when you study how Nathan Rothschild, okay, manipulated, you know, things, you know, during that time of the transatlantic slave trade, you know, even going to the time of the abolishment of slavery. Okay, how they pretty much, you know, made Jake like a global collateral, man. Okay, all right, from this beast system, I say NATO, American, EU, all right, to all these governments of the heathen of the world, man. Yahweh Shai is coming to strip all that authority and enslave them. Okay, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. clothed with a vexed blood, and his name is called the word, the angels, the heavenly host. Man, they terrorized us. Our power's finna terrorize them. Okay? The effects of these hardcore slaveries and captivities, how it just, has destroyed us as a people, goes into that, but it goes into the restoration, and we'll end it here, It says, for thus said the Lord, thy bruises and costs, okay, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicines, man. And what we've been affect on us and how we are as a people, man. We've been greatly traumatized, man, because trauma is passed down. Okay, and all throughout the earth, man, Jake, has been pretty much a punching bag to these heathens, man. And that comes from us forsaking our power. So our power forsook us till we was powerless amongst these heathens, man. The Lord showed us what it means to be powerless. The Lord showed us what it means to be in the earth without his protection, man. Okay, he really showed us what that meant. All right, it says, all thy lovers have forgotten thee, because was the thing that made us be punished. Going after the guys of these other nations, man. Falling in love with the ways of the heathen, man. Adopting those ways, man. Okay? So the Lord's like, well, look, since you love them so much, all right, I'm going to give you fully over to them. I'm going to let them have full range over you, man. Since you follow them so much and disregard me, I'm going to give you over to them. Okay? It says, all thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not. For I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, beginning with Esau Edom. Esau Edom is the embodiment of this cruel chastisement, man. Okay? For the multitude of thy iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things unto thee, man. And the only way to be cured, to start the healing process, is come back to the physician, Yahweh Shai. And we begin to heal from the wounds of slavery, man. Because Jake can't see themselves outside the image of a slave in another man's kingdom, man. That's why Jake is so offended when we speak about our own kingdom, man. Because Jake is still, stuck in that slave mentality that he's okay with existing and just getting by in another man's kingdom. Okay? But we're healing from that slave mentality and developing a ruling class mentality, man. Where we have a high self-image of ourselves, man. As we've been reattached to our true legacy, man, our true heritage, man. Okay? Beginning with Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, and the patriarch, man, the forefathers, man. Okay? Verse 16 says, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all they prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Okay, so this is the judgment Yahweh Shai is coming to enforce in the earth, man. You see, this is where we at with. This is what everything is building up to. Yahweh Shai coming back to enforce, okay, this righteous. Verse 17, for I will restore health unto thee, and it's in the earth. Make more sense. Revelation 2:25. I'm reading NLT. Except that you hold tightly to what you have until I come, and that's the faith, man, and the victory. You gotta hold on to this faith, okay, in the worst scenarios, man. That Yahweh Shai is coming with that victory, man. Okay? Because we're going to be in some situations that look hopeless, man, but we got to stay faithful to that narrative of the victory that's promised to us, man. Okay? It said, to all who are victorious, who obey me to the very end, to them will I give authority over all the nations, man. Authority over all the nations, man. Okay? And that's the ultimate reward for obeying Yahweh Shai, man. It's getting that authority over all the nations in those new bodies, man. Okay? We're getting authority over these heathens in new bodies. Okay? In those glorified bodies, man. And that's the ultimate payback, man. You know, we serve a just power. Okay, because you can look at it and pout about what's been done to us, man.